repairs and replacing the things that get broken and stolen, and
What does the national system have to do with ours?
because it all runs through Zenner's operating system. We don't own the operating system, and their operating system's been down.
They given us any kind of a reason why, or
So Nicole said that they didn't directly say that they had been hacked, but that was the feeling that she got.
Great.
steal that water data? Right.
Any other questions on utility billing? Okay. All right, page 115 is utility maintenance. So utility maintenance, as you can see, is got kind of switched around some positions. Part of this comes from the change of utility construction going away. But it is causing an increase in the salaries and benefits that's budgeted, because now we have a full year of utilities and public works being split. They're requesting additional money in supplies for fuel, safety supplies, and uniforms. The really only significant decrease is the capital outlay, where, as like we've talked about before, any incomplete projects are going to go ahead and roll over to FY24, including any incomplete equipment purchases. Any questions on utility maintenance?
The 3 additional journeymen that you have in here, have we been having trouble filling any of those kind of positions?
How many? You have 7 vacant? He has 8 vacant positions at this point.
Over in,
In utility maintenance? Yes. So yes. Not
that's
only problems,
probably filling
recruiting,
and retaining.
but yeah, retaining is,
Train them a little bit, and then they move on to something else.
or they get their CDL and they move on.
Do we pay for all that for them to get their CDLs, or do they gotta do that?
Yeah, we pay for them to get their CDL.
Oh, wow. Is there any way to implement some sort of a,
We have a plan for that as well. We met with,
something to retain them long enough to get our money back? you
Yep.
know?
we have, working with Dave and then also with Kim, similar to, because we're having the same issues in utilities as we are in police, so we're looking, we met on that today
Take
too.
our money and run.
Exactly, yeah. And to a point where we're going to try to collect them, be more aggressive in collecting any monies that we put into the employee that then they just take off, so.
Do we have any reason? Did they do exit interviews when they leave? Reason that
They
they're
do,
leaving?
everybody does an exit interview.
Do they have any specific reasons why they're leaving, or
Do you feel like there's something that's significant across?
any glaring issue that,
Better pay.
Yeah, there's been a couple that were for more money, with the other contractors in Alamogordo. For more money at the time, not thinking long-term of retirement or whatever. I had one that I, said that they work too hard, so.
they want what?
That they work too hard? Yeah.
Well, that's just terrible.
At least he was honest, because we know, we know that a lot of people quit for that same reason.
Part of that cream puff society we live in. or something. Back in my day, anyway.
Any other questions on utility maintenance? Okay, we're going to go to page 116, which is the wastewater treatment plant. We did have an increase in a position there, and again, that's kind of just moving people around. But we did change a bunch of job titles and everything as well. So in doing all that, and with the step increases, it does show an increase of $43,000 on the salaries and benefits. Supplies, we did do a significant increase in the supplies, and a lot of that comes down to the same thing that we talked about with the pool, is the water treatment chemicals. They went up for the pool, they went up for wastewater as well. So they saw an increase there. And that was their main increase in supplies. They also are seeing an increase in utilities. They run all the time, so they're going to see that just like everybody else has. And then other services, an increase in lab services, is there's new permits that require a different type of testing. And there's also 6 new monitoring wells that have also increased the demand on the lab services. So that was an increase there as well. Questions on wastewater? They're one that you're possibly going to see a capital request come pretty quickly. They have a major part in their wastewater operation that's kind of failing. So we're going to probably need to address that sooner rather than later.
I'm not yawning, it's okay.
How long has it been since we revamped that plant out there?
How long? 11 years?
Has it been that long?
We were talking about that in the budget, about that some of the stuff that has a 10-year lifespan is
Well,
starting
that
to
thing
get there.
had, like, we were on year 30 and it only had like a 10-year lifespan when we revamped it and then phased it. So, but, okay.
Okay, page 117 is, it says water filter plant, but we're supposed to call it water production plant. So that's page 117. As you can see, their positions have stayed the same in the numbers. Again, we've kind of shifted around some job titles and everything, so you can kind of see where that is. The step increases have led to, an increase there. In supplies, same sort of thing. They also have water treatment chemicals that have seen a significant increase. So the majority of the increase in supplies comes from there, as well as needing to increase some maintenance supplies to maintain the area. Other services right now has some of the major plans are in it. So those are one-time expenses that are in FY23 that will carry over to FY24 if they're not completed. And then, of course, the same thing with the capital. Most of that, I believe, is in the process of being completed, and if it's not completed, then it will move over. And actually, all of that is in capital equipment. So if some of it does not arrive, we'll keep rolling it over until we can get it. Any questions on the water production plant? Page 118 is the utilities construction, which does not exist anymore, so it does not have a budget in it for FY24. So moving on to page 119 is our water and sewer capital projects. As you can see, we have a $2.5 million currently budgeted in FY23. The portions of that not completed will carry over. The $350,000 that's in there is the amount that we put in water line improvement and pipeline replacement every year. So that's the standard annual allocation, and then it's increased as needed. Any questions on water sewer capital projects? Okay. Page 120 is our solid waste collection system. That is the collection or the convenience center out on LaBelle Road. The user fees from that come directly from the water bills. So we went ahead and projected based on what the current approved amount is. They are receiving a transfer in that is attached to capital outlay for FY24. that capital outlay is the purchase of a 24-foot roll-off. So that's been approved. From there, they do some transfers out for internal services and a little bit for engineering, but mostly internal services. They have not had a change, or they have had a change in position. They've added one position, which is the increase of, on the salaries and benefits. For their supplies, they are requesting an increase in fuels is really the only increase there. Maintenance, we increase their communications maintenance to be able to kind of modernize what their operations out there. And then their other services is we are always having to adjust for the Southwest disposal contract because we pay that out of Fund 86. So we're always needing to kind of keep an eye on that and project for the mandatory increase that they have in their contract. We know that the CPI is going to be high this year. So we went ahead and built that in to pay their contract. Any questions on the convenience center? Okay. Page 122 is the Benito Campground. Right now, we don't have a lot planned at the Benito Campground, but I know that that is going to change. They're actively working on the usage plan and the community services master plan, which is where the $30,000 is budgeted as part of paying for that plan, along with $150,000 that's there. So once they bring that plan to you, I think we'll have a lot more stuff to budget in Fund 88. They have a reasonably good cash balance. It's about $400,000 right now, so that'll hopefully give you guys a little bit of leeway to play with. Fund 1, or page 123, Fund 90, this is the golf course. The golf course, as you know, is run by a contractor who handles the golf pro portion and handles the 19th hole portion, and then we employ the maintenance staff that runs the golf course. So the user fees are based on the feedback we get from Grant, seeing as how he collects all of the revenue out there. So he provides most of the information for that. You'll notice that they have a smaller transfer in budgeted for this year. That is because the majority of the transfer in for FY23 was for capital projects, less for operating. So they're working on several of those capital projects right now. So I think we'll see a little bit of a carryover, but not a huge one. The salaries and benefits have a minimal change. Supplies is an increase in the chemicals that they use as part of their fertilizing. And their maintenance, they're hoping for a decrease in the heating and cooling repairs because they are getting a new HVAC system, so hopefully it needs to be fixed less. And then just the other services looks huge, but that's where the pro contract lives. So as we know, he pays the revenue to us, and then he technically keeps a portion of the revenue as his payment, versus we don't necessarily cut him a check every month. So they don't have any capital planned for FY 2024 as we're looking to finish up the HVAC and some of the other repairs. And then I think they're still waiting on their new triplex mower. I don't think that's come in yet either. So, any questions on the golf course?
Actually, I do. I've been called on this one a couple times.
Sure.
Stephanie might be able to, what's the status of superintendent position there?
Kim,
We're still collecting applications. We
Okay.
just haven't gotten anything that
Sure.
we can apply.
Have we looked into the option of contracting that out, possibly? I mean, with,
I don't think we've talked about that.
okay.
Hmm.
I mean, just as far as condition of the course and the money we're dumping into irrigation and stuff at the moment, that thing could go downhill real fast without any superintendents coming in or stepping up or whatever. So I think that's something we should look into, possibly.
You knew that was coming, right?
Yep. Should, I get calls daily on it,
I
so,
mean, yeah, let's face it, raise your hand if you haven't got the call on the golf course.
yeah.
I haven't.
You
Get
haven't?
Every time I'm out there.
Oh, Lord.
I don't go out
Okay,
there though.
well. Anybody else? No, I've gotten several, so.
We're fully staffed out there in the maintenance side of it, other than the superintendent, correct?
Yes.
We have not an acting, but somebody that's kind of assuming that role, or
Basically,
are they just kind of running rampant?
Not really.
We have an acting, who's acting?
I think it's just a concern for obviously a lot of people. I'm not a golfer, but, you know, for me to look at that course, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah. But then when, you know, if I'm out there or something for, which there's obviously, they have a lot of meetings out there, so I attend meetings out there, then I get stopped and they're like, they're pointing this, and I'm like, okay, well, you know, I only understand so much of it, but I do know that I've been asked a lot about it too, so obviously it's a concern, and I know that you already know that. I know you do, and you were probably anticipating that question, but
Not the contract services part, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
What?
we're not letting it go down. Of course, we have the acting, and I think you were gonna, if we need to get to that point, you were gonna, Belinda was gonna look at parks people maybe stepping in.
yeah, and I think it's, I think it's questionable whether we're not letting it go down or not. Like I said, I'm not a golfer, but I've gotten a lot of comments and a lot of feedback from people that I've tried to educate myself on it, because I don't.
And I think the concern out there is, it's a lot more than running a weed or a lawnmower or something on the golf course itself. I mean, you gotta know how to work with the effluent water and the greens and the, you know, different things. And
And
it's a
we're,
major quality of life, especially
Yeah.
since Holloman shut their course down.
and Belinda is well
Yeah.
educated in the wastewater,
Sure.
that part of it.
Good.
So yeah, I mean, we know there's a problem as far as, but yeah, we're keeping an eye on it,
If we
definitely.
contracted that out, it would be substantially more expensive than if we have it in-house, correct?
Like I said, we haven't really
Right,
looked at
we've
contracting
explored
out
the
that one.
option.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you know, got a guy at 60,000-70,000 a year on the payroll. For somebody to put as a contract, they'd have to have substantially more money a year to, it's just my thought on it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've brought stuff in-house because we could do it cheaper.
Yep.
And then it ends up getting more expensive, and then we go and contract it back out to get the price back down, but
Yeah, and it would be dependent on how you decided to
the
set up the
duties and-
contract
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Because like for the supervisory expense, you have 64,534. And then obviously operational is, you know, 273,000. So if you're talking about fully contracting it out and going, you know, no city employees, fully contracted out, I mean, we did that for the IT and it's $1.1 million. So I have no idea, like, what it'd be golf course wise, but it's definitely a consideration.
Sure.
So just going back to the other services, I want to make sure I understand this right. We're paying, of the 1.7 million in user fees, we're paying a little over $1 million to the pro contract.
Yes, yes. So he runs the pro shop and he runs the restaurant. And so we take a portion of that revenue we keep, and then he keeps a portion of it as well. So it's really kind of an accounting exercise in terms of however much he brings in, his portion that he keeps ends up going into the expense.
Who owns the land? Do Do we own the land?
Oh,
or
and we own the land. We
Yes.
own, it's ours. It belongs to the city. The building and the pro shop and the restaurant and everything belongs to the city. So that's why we, we go in there, we replace the HVAC, we do all that, because it's our building. Any other questions on the golf course? Other than what's their special gonna be tomorrow? Okay, so page 125 is the airport. So revenue-wise, the major portion obviously is user fees. Those are the hangar rental leases that we bill every year in June. And so we send those out to the individuals who rent those. You'll notice that the grant number in FY '23 is very large. I did find out this week that most likely that grant is not going to happen, which, as you know, it goes against my thing that we budgeted it without an agreement, but it was kind of one of the requirements of the grant, was we had to show that we would budget it. So we did show that we would budget it, but it doesn't sound like it's going to come to fruition, so most likely we'll remove that on the next revision that comes in front of you all for
And what was
FY
that
'23.
grant? What was it for?
Lights, I think,
Like
Lighting.
road lighting or
Yeah.
something.
on the runway.
Didn't we just get a bunch of state capital outlay money though for the airport? Or we're fixing to?
I think we're fixing to. I
Like
have
15 million or
not,
something like that?
I have not read that final bill, so I'm not sure how much it allocated to each individual.
I thought it was close to 15 million out there or something
Yeah,
like that.
I don't know. Have you seen what that final bill ended up as?
We've been asking, but we don't know what it is. And it's not the 15 million, because they significantly reduced. I think that was the 251 million, and the final bill ended up being 55,000, or 55 million, and I'm not sure what part of that 55 million is ours. But we've been asking, but
Yeah,
nobody seems to know.
we certainly haven't gotten a nice, sheet that lays
Has
it
they
out to
signed
us.
it yet, or what, the governor?
Well, she has to have signed it. If she didn't sign it, it's dead by now.
Okay.
So then, the other expenses for the airport, we did see a decrease in the airport maintenance supplies. That was also some one-time funding that was budgeted in FY '23, kind of one of those one-time grants. And then in the other services was kind of a similar thing. It was a one-time payment that was in there. And then, of course, the capital outlay is the grant I'm referring to that I was speaking with Debbie about this week. However, once we find out exactly what the state is doing, we'll bring that back either in between the preliminary to the final, or if we have to bring it back in the first revision. That way we can, get it on our books once we know what they're doing. Any questions on the airport? Okay, page 127 takes us to the regional landfill. We normally have already taken this at this point to the landfill board. However, due to various different reasons, we've kind of had to postpone that meeting. So we do have the user fees. The majority of the user fees are driven off of our asbestos, which is always a great moneymaker for us and always a good supportive part of the landfill. But then we also do charge member fees and non-member fees for the people that come out there and dispose of their refuge. So we always try and be pretty conservative with those. We will be revising the FY '23 budget because we have had an uptick in asbestos since the last time we revised it, and we need to get that a little bit corrected. Other changes that we've seen out at the landfill is we did reduce the mechanic position that has been budgeted out there. It was kind of a strange position that was not really ever filled. I suspect that they'll be coming with a different plan here shortly. If you don't know, there's been some turnover at the landfill. And so I have a feeling that there's going to be some changes. Maintenance, we have seen an increase in facilities maintenance, just the maintenance that needs to be done out there. And then other services, we increased contingency some, and then we decreased what is labeled as the well monitoring account, because the well monitoring was being paid out of a different account, and so we had some redundancies, so we went ahead and took that out. Capital, the biggest thing, there was some equipment purchases on that capital, which if not complete by FY '23 will roll over. And then, as always, the cell closure project, until it's finally signed off, will also roll over. Are there any questions on the landfill?
Are we still on fire down there?
Yes.
Are you still on
Yeah.
fire down there?
Are we?
It's subsurface, yeah.
I haven't had enough.
Crazy.
I was just asking, so.
Any other questions on the landfill? Okay, perfect. All right. That is the final enterprise. So the next part, we don't really even have to go fund by fund because it's trust and agency, and they really don't have a budget. The only one that has a budget is the state judicial, and that's because it's a pass-through. It's the funds that municipal court collects for state judicial. They take the revenue in, they pay the exact revenue out. So the budget is expenditures equal revenue. Everything else, the court bonds, the state, or the payroll clearing, the utility deposits, and the court escrow accounts, they're all holding accounts or clearing funds that are used mostly for accounting purposes, but some are for holding. Any questions about trust and agency, how the state judicial works, anything about utility deposits? Okay. So let's talk about gross receipts tax really quick. Right now, we are at 8%. 2.1875 is what has been enacted by the city of Alamogordo. 0.8125 is the county enacted tax, and the state shared portion is 5%. So the governor signed a bill to change this. So effective July 1st, 2023, our enacted portion is the same, 2.185. The county is still 8.125, but the state shared, or the state portion is 4.875. So beginning July 1st of 2023, the tax rate in Alamogordo will go down to 7.8750. That tax decrease was taken out of the state's portion of their enacted tax, so we will still be receiving the same state share equal to 1.225%. So that's just pretty much an FYI on where we're at with our tax rates. And then this is a graph of the last 4 years of our gross receipts tax. The yellow line that gets really wonky is 2020. The orange line that kind of grows is 2021. 2022 is that top red line that we had a really, really good year in FY 2022. But you'll notice kind of that brownish line is where we are in 2023. So we've kind of come back down to life a little bit. 2022 was a really good year, but 2023 has seen a little bit of a slowdown from that. So all of that has been taken into consideration when we've done our GRT projections. So this, I just kind of wanted to give you guys this as an illustration of where we've been, where we're at. If you'll remember, the big spike in 2022 comes from, we had a couple of those corrections where they determined that somebody was paying taxes in the wrong code. So they paid us back for those. FY '23 approved capital, we've gone through all of these, but here's a list of so far what has been approved for capital. We will be doing a mid-year capital review. Once we get the cash balances, we get them rolled over, we figure out where we are, where some of our projects are, just like we did last year. And then we'll be able to consider awarding additional capital that was requested based on where the fund balance comes in. Any questions on approved capital or on GRT? And Commissioner Reardon, I'm surprised you didn't say I told you so
On what?
on the GRT, because last year you told me so,
As far as-
that the GRT was going to go down,
I thought
that we were going to go for an economic slowdown.
Oh, it's definitely gonna start ticking down. Like I say, you can already see it in the economy, so.
Yeah.
Did we take that into account? You guys kind of just stayed level?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, we never include any growth.
I just remember some of the former city managers used to get a little, and do like a 3% increase. and
Yeah,
it's
I'm
like,
not an optimistic person.
Well,
Outside agencies, we talked about these, we talked about ZIA already. The Chamber of Commerce right now is budgeted to receive $55,000 out of Fund 11. However, their contract is up for renegotiation. I know Acting City Manager Hernandez has been working with them. And then Main Street Alamogordo, not including the project that we're working on them with their big allocation that they got. They're just their regular operating, they're budgeted right now to receive $55,000, but I also know they're in contract negotiations as well currently. So depending on all of those negotiations, obviously, we'll adjust. If we have the numbers before the preliminary, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll adjust for the final.
What was Main Street's last year? Do you remember?
40,000.
what do they use that money for?
Huh?
What do they use it for?
Just the regular operations, their marketing, communications that they do.
The salary for the director.
Yeah, the salary for the director.
Basically, we pay for their director.
So the
kind of a
MOU that
benefit?
is requires some give from the, or some partnership from the city. Right now, for the population that we have, the suggested amount is 40,000.
Why did we bump it to 55?
That's what they requested. I had talked to Nolan earlier in the year. That's what he said he was gonna do, is request for 55, but.
But
I'm
we
like-
nothing's been finalized, we're
Yeah,
still going
yeah.
back and forth, yeah.
And that's why we kind of put it in here as a placeholder, knowing that contract negotiations would still be ongoing, probably through the point in time where we have to submit our final, our preliminary budget.
Just for my own information, what's the benefit that the city gets? I mean, I understand the Main Street and the old blocks down there, but what is the benefit to the community for the 55,000?
So they do,
Sorry,
you know,
put you
no,
on the
they
spot.
do,
Sorry.
no, you're fine. You know, they do their events. They, you know, bring a lot to the small businesses that are in that part of town. All of those events, like their Christmas on Main Street, kind of their Comic-Con thing that they do and everything, they do those. They're not the City of Alamogordo special events or anything like that. So, you know, they do a lot to that. They do a lot of promotion for their businesses. And they would tell you that they do a lot of lobbying of the city for improvements in that area, and that they galvanize the workforce to do some of those improvements through volunteer labor. And Sharon might be able to talk to that more, because I know you went to their conference too, so.
No, I just
Commissioner
think
McDonald.
it's part of the money that comes in from the state, the Main Street organization. So they're looking at like 1.9 million.
Correct,
It's
and
actually
from the Great Blocks. And so that, yeah, that's a huge infusion of cash in that area.
I think that they brought a lot of awareness, though, to Alamogordo. I think if you look at where we were and where we're at now, and, you know, I don't know if anybody knows this, but we've actually been accepted into the, and I'm so tired that I cannot think of it, but it's a state program that very few municipalities have been slated for. And so, and that will give them access to special grants and those kinds of things. And so there really has been a huge benefit, and I will say that Nolan works with a lot of passion and really believes in what, you know, and in my opinion, does not get paid, because he doesn't get paid $55,000 a year. I don't believe that's true. And so, you know,
Sure, they have some.
much like a
expense.
lot of us in the nonprofit world, it was definitely not there for the money, but I think that they have worked pretty hard to prove themselves over the last couple of years, so.
That grant money that they've received down there, is it just for like New York Avenue, like 2 or 3 blocks down there, or?
And I think it spans 10th Street, because I think it's some on the other side of New
That's
York
what I meant,
Avenue.
A
Yeah,
couple blocks this way,
Yeah,
a couple
yeah.
blocks that way, like the Flickinger Center down to about Sherwin-Williams or
Yeah.
down in that area?
Mhm.
Okay.
It was pretty specific, wasn't it, when they?
yeah, it's
they applied for it.
that
It's that
area.
Are we the fiscal agent of that money?
We are the fiscal agent of that money.
What are the projects that we're looking at to use that money for?
So it's all designed. It's benches and light posts and sidewalks and a lot of aesthetic.
resurfacing, lighting.
It's pretty incredible, actually.
And-
Yeah.
Yeah, and
big
our
signage.
match was going in and doing the infrastructure underneath, because we either had to cash match it or we had to match in kind. And so we came back and said, okay, well, we'll tear up the road, we'll do the infrastructure that we need to do, and we'll put that back so that when you put in your nice sidewalks and your nice lighting and stuff, that we're not gonna have to tear it up to do a water line a little bit later.
When did we do all that? When did we get that grant?
We
Maybe
just,
I was
we
sleeping
just
through
got the,
meeting or something.
we just got the
Just
grant
say it just
paperwork.
started. It's not been too long.
When did we do the agreement though, like that we'd do the roads and?
I don't know if the agreement's been on the agenda yet.
No.
I
don't
saw
believe
it the
so.
other day, Debbie and I were talking about it, and she's been working back and forth with the state. Because initially, we were supposed to get it in like November, and then they got really, really delayed. So I don't think Debbie's had it on the agenda yet, but I know she's been working with the state to get everything finalized, so she could put it on the agenda.
Do we have those improvements budgeted?
They're done.
All those improvement, the infrastructure's already done down there?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that is the end of my presentation. If you have any additional questions, comments, or concerns about the budget.
Could you just briefly expand on the investment? Like, what is our portfolio risk? What are we invested in? How much?
Sure. So the majority of our investments are in certificates of deposits. You know, governmental CDs are extremely safe. They pay in between 1%, 1.5%, depending on when we're in them. We do contract with Morton Securities. They are our main investment provider. So Larry Lundberg out of Utah is our portfolio advisor. And so we do have some bonds that, depending on, you know, what he finds he feels good for us. We also use our money market account because right now our money market account is paying 4.25%. But it is, again, it's a governmental, so it's fully collateralized. We're not in anything that's not governmental. We're also invested in some of the banks in town. We have certificates of deposit with First Savings. We also have a money market account with First Savings. We have certificates of deposits with Pioneer. We recently turned in our certificates of deposit with Washington Federal to go ahead and move those into Morton to try and kind of centralize a little bit what we have going on. But really, the majority of things are CDs or municipal bonds.
Do we have any exposure to equities or stocks?
No.
Okay.
No, we're not in any sort of speculative investments at all. No mutual funds or anything like that.
Those would be a little too risky, wouldn't they?
No risk. Which, we have an investment policy. This commission probably hasn't seen it. It was approved before then, but our investment policy says that, like, we cannot do any sort of speculating.
Okay.
I'd like to ask on the budget resolutions from here forward, when y'all bring those forward to us, if they have any kind of staff changes or, you know, all of us up here have jobs, sometimes we can't read all of that stuff 100% or don't quite understand all of it exactly. If we're gonna have positions created or moved around like that, if you guys could be a little more transparent and tell us.
We can move them off the consent agenda, put them on new
Most of
business.
the time, they're on consent agenda and cause say we just vote on it and you guys pretty much can put whatever you want on there and we pretty much pass it cause it's on consent. So, but in the future, if we're gonna be creating positions or funding positions through budget adjustments, in the past, when I was on commission before, whenever we created positions, it was always usually done around budget time or during budget. It wasn't done mid-year. So I think it would.
We can move them from the consent agenda to new business.
You know, if it's normal routine business, you know, hey, we gotta move 250 for this water line or this tank or this broke or whatever, that's one thing, but when we're creating positions and stuff, I think we should know, you know, at least be told about it, so.
Do we have anything else? Is everybody tired?
I'm ready to go, let's go through this book one more
All
time.
right, let's go.
Page 1,
I'm up for the challenge. Let's
property
go.
tax.
There's a test. Did you guys know that? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, fine. All right, if there is nothing else,
Our bonds and stuff too, do we just have those three right now, the fund center, the road, and
Those-
the
yeah.
other two that were from the 15 million?
Those are our three
That's the
obligation
only
bonds.
three we have right now, and then the 2017 one?
The 2017 one, and then the fund center and the roads. So we have three right now.
The fund center, and then the intersection down here was a separate one, and then
Correct?
the 15 million from 2008 or
No,
2009?
that one's gone.
We just refinanced it, we didn't pay it off, did we?
No, I think we paid it off,
Did we?
Yeah.
They're 20 years, aren't they?
because I think we only have three. We have the 2014 ones and the 2017 one.
Okay.
And
thought
I think
just-
we refinanced it into a loan. We didn't refinance it into another bond,
We
so it switched debt service funds.
Okay, the one for the 15 million?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, if you could, like, just so we kind of know. I don't know if you guys pay attention to that stuff, but,
I do.
so we have a picture of where we're at on that part of it.
I think I have, from the last time John came, we still have that as well, because I
Okay.
think he had all of them included on there.
Okay, and that was when we refinanced those
We
others
refinanced,
into a loan?
Yep.
Do we know how our debt compares to Roswell, Hobbs?
So we're pretty debt conservative. We definitely do not go out for debt as much as some places do. Partially, it comes down to, you know, if it's a general obligation bond, are we gonna get it passed? We've had mixed success. But I would say we're debt conservative, for sure.
I think so too, just from what I haven't done a ton of research, but from what I've seen, I feel like we're pretty conservative and,
Especially you mentioned Roswell. I have a friend that's on the Roswell City Commission, and they do a lot of debt. But they also kind of have a bigger tax base than we do as well, so.
I just wanted to comment, I was on my way back from El Paso, so I was late getting here. But I came anyway to this exciting meeting.
Nobody wants to miss the budget.
I'll be kidding, wait to get here, right?
You should hear me give software training. It's even better.
Well, I will say that the way you set it up this year was probably, in the 7 years I've been doing this now, that was probably
I think it rolled a little
the
bit better.
easiest. Yeah, it flowed really well. It was very easy to read. It's obvious you put a lot of thought into it. And what I really like is that you guys know your stuff. Like, you know, we don't have to,
Well, and I give
you're not
Maurice,
faking it. I can tell you know your stuff, and
I
obviously.
got to give Maurice a ton of
I was
credit.
gonna
'cause
say
I've
he was
been
obviously
really
ready.
covered up with IT stuff, and Maurice is, he gets it done, he gives me the draft and doesn't yell at me when I'm like, and here's all the changes.
In years past, usually in the back of the book, they would put us a little cheat sheet of what all the other services were.
So that's in the front.
Is it? I
Yeah,
didn't see
it's
it.
on-
Well, it had it broke down by department, like, say DPS or fire, it would have the other services, but it would break down what those other services were.
And it says that, like there's a list of all the different lines that go into other
It's in the
services.
front of it?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, it's on page 5.
No, but I mean, it actually had dollar amounts, and it was a little spreadsheet. Is how we
Oh,
had it.
we've never done that.
And
My group hasn't.
I may be thinking pre-COVID, but we used to get that. It just gives us a little bit, instead of us asking you the question, we can just flip to the back and look at it.
Mm-hmm.
I usually take it out, and that way I have it and can look. For next year, if y'all could remember that.
Okay. Well, hopefully, and next year we'll be on our new software, so it's all going to look different. And hopefully the reporting of it will be easier.
Easier.
It'll be interesting. All the account numbers, the funds are the same, but all the account numbers are different.
Well, thank you for all your work. We appreciate that very much. And does anybody have anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? Commissioner Reardon, do I have a second? A second from,
Second, I'm sorry.
gotcha. A second from Commissioner McDonald. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And we're adjourned. Thank you.